Let me tell you something probably no one has ever told you before. People write books because there's a need, but it is also important to be in a very good place in your life when you read a book. By that, I mean in self. You should know yourself. You should have a foundation, know what you believe in, and do not be swayed by everything that you read. It's important that I start with that because I'm about to review 3 books that I read this year and tell you my favorite things about them. But it's important that if something does not relate to you, you do not take it, you do not own it because it doesn't relate to you, right? So last year, God told me, don't read a single self help book because you do not know how to act when you read those books and you try to be someone that you're not. I needed that word, and I know that that is for someone else out there because you go into it thinking, oh my gosh, it's Sarah Jakes, probably knows exactly what she's talking about, but you guys are not necessarily going through the exact same problems, and you don't react and solve those problems the same way. Cognitive diversity. Go into this book review with that perspective. Um, I think that's the whole video. That's a word from someone for someone. That is a word for someone. What I did during my break was I read my Bible. I was in my Zoom. Got everything what God said about me, what God said about things before I went back to reading what other people say about things because they're not God and they do not know more than God. And they don't know you too. Strangers literally writing these books. So take it with a pinch of salt. Um, but like reading is good for you. It's good for your mind. It's good for your vocabulary. Hi guys, Kamala Munombo Sokumbi, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I want to be reviewing 3 books for you. I read The Diary of a CEO, The 33 Laws of Life and Business, or Business and Life. I read that during my vacation in January, throughout Jan. Then I read Make Your Bed, which is something I wasn't really trying to read because it was and I just ended up reading that book when I was going to work, like so during my Uber rides from work and to work and from work. And then I was reading that in conjunction with The Woman Evolve. So first, we're going to start with The Diary of a CEO, The 33 Laws of Business and Life by Stephen Bartlett. See, that man knows his business. I think what shocked me more than anything is that Stephen Bartlett is a young man. He is not that old. And already he's been like a co-founder of billion-dollar businesses. He's in tons of he's a board of director. He's in the board of directors for multiple companies, and he's just doing amazing things. If you don't know who Stephen Bartlett is, he has a podcast called The Diary of a CEO, and he interviews like different field experts on different topics, which I think is really nice because his target market is essentially everyone who wants to know about things. So that was smart. But yeah, he writes this books, and I'm just gonna get into it. Like he divides it into 4 pillars. So the self, the philosophy, or the self, the story, the philosophy, and the team. So I'm just gonna mention 3 things or 4 things from the self that I liked, and then I'm gonna mention something from the philosophy. So I'm gonna mention the laws that resonated with me. I mean, all of them did, but I'm just gonna mention these 5 so that we don't spend a lot of time reviewing this one book. So, under the self, he talks about filling your 5 buckets. So that's your knowledge, your skill, your network, your resources, and your reputation. But knowledge and skills are something that cannot be taken from you. Those are those are things that you need to build. So should be your foundation. Build that first. No one can take that from you. And there's so much that you can achieve once you have those things solid. So he makes an example about a guy that used to work for him, but he ended up being offered a CEO role at another company, and that company ended up flunking because this guy had no idea how to be a CEO. He did not have the skills nor the knowledge. So do not skip the necessary steps or when it pertains to knowledge and skills just for like status or whatever it is. Know your business so that you can be successful in the next step of your life, which is why things like have that natural progression. I think which is also why we don't go from 1 year to like 30 years old. The second law was create an obligation to teach it. And I love that because I think for me, that was a foundation. That is the foundational. It made me more confident in what I was starting with my WhatsApp community in terms of like, I just like also my journey of knowing God. So I figured if I learn more about so much about God, then I explain like complex things in a few sentences in like under a minute, then my knowledge is growing. So basically that's what he's saying, like create an obligation to teach something. If you can teach something to a child, that's when you know that you fully understand it. So whatever skill you have, whatever knowledge you have, if you can teach that, then you know it. So create that obligation for yourself, put yourself in the public, whatever it is that you have to do. If it's a YouTube channel, if whatever it is, shoot like 100 videos a day if you need to, just so that you can be just so that you can explain things easily and have the skill. It's very important. Number three, while we're on self, is to never disagree. So if someone says something to you and you don't agree with it, what he recommends is to find something that you agree with in what they said, and then have your own argument to it. So what this does to the brain is it keeps the other person engaged, right? Because if you immediately disagree, it shuts their brain off and then they can't engage further in that conversation. So a study they did was that if you start with an agreement, when people agree with each other, their brains light up. It kind of opens them up to other like solutions or perspectives to things, because you're not completely shutting them off and saying no, but you're trying to see what you agree with there and then adding your piece, right? That seems like a nice thing to do, especially if you're in a relationship. I recommend that you do that. Number four, I think, is to not lean out. I'm not sure what the chapter is called, but like you have to lean into things. So the example there is there was a CEO of brick and mortar, like music stores. But basically, when the digital music scene came out, he was like, ain't no way that digital music is going to be a thing. That's not going to work. What is that? And it did. Eventually all those CD stores and music stores had to close down because digital music had taken over the world. And we have this new like generative AI thing popping right now. So being like, you need to learn about those things. Immediately when your mind wants to reject something, try to lean in and learn more about it and see how you can use it to your advantage for your progression. Because if you lean out of things, you get left behind, right? So a lot of people did this with the internet, they did this with like iPhone, MacBook, whatever it is. So do not be a person that leans out, lean in and learn about things. This challenged me a lot because I think I'm against AI. And for someone who's my age, that shouldn't be the case. But I just don't like that people don't use their brains. But it challenged me to be like, okay, if that makes you so upset, learn how you can optimize it. Like, still use your brain, but like, make life a bit easier for yourself by using these tools. So actually, something I forgot to mention with self is that he talks about something called cognitive dissonance. It's that our brains kind of reject things that we don't believe in. Like if there's something that contradicts what we believe in, we there's a conflict that's created within us, and we just don't want to hear it. So he's saying that as the world progresses, because change is happening so rapidly, that conflict within self is going to increase. But you need to be aware of it, which means that you're going to have to learn things quickly too. And just maybe like high level overview of things and how they work, why they exist, just so you're not left behind in the world. Let's get to philosophy. So he talks about studying the small stuff. So his team does research, uses AI to test out thumbnails, to test out titles, to test out how a video will do. They do research behind, they find out what the guest's favorite music will be, and they play that music in the background, and that kind of eases the guest. So it's like sweating the small stuff. Whatever you're working on, sweat the small stuff. And then he adds on to talk about the Kaizen theory or Kaizen method, which is like a Japanese thing, which is like small progression, that small steps actually do yield to bigger results. So that read a book if you found what I just mentioned interesting. I swear to you, it gets better, and there might be things or laws that you like that I didn't mention here. Now, let's get into Women Evolve. Can I tell you that I struggled a bit with this book because I just wasn't getting it at first. But when I was done with the book, I was like, oh, I get it. Basically, I'm not even gonna like go into chapter and chapter and chapter with this book. This is how it looks, by the way. I have it close by. The Diary of a CEO. I gave it to a friend. I borrowed a friend. By the way, I need my book back. Thank you. Woman Evolve is about Sarah Jakes identifying Eve as actually not a villain, but as someone who introduced or who paved the way for salvation for every human, for humanity, basically. That her seed that is because it's because of her seed that Jesus was born, right? And she kind of mirrors Mary to Eve, saying that, without Eve, obviously there wouldn't be any Mary. Um, but that Jesus was actually a seed of Mary in the sense that, a seed of Eve in the sense that she was, when God cursed the serpent and spoke about the seed that will, he was talking about Jesus. And that was a blessing that was given. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't explain it well, but I hope you felt it. Like, I can't say it how I want it. If you get that Sarah Jake's reference, then you're an OG. Basically, that's what it is. And just talking about how we women have this potential and how there are things in our childhoods that make us who we are today, or make us react to how we react to things. Like, so it needs a lot of groundwork. What I like about the book is that she has like working it out sessions where it's like you have to journal. So she asks questions and you have to journal it out and write what you think, like in response to those questions. And child, you will probably cry during those sessions, but it's okay because you're also doing a lot of healing and unearthing a lot of like traumas that you didn't think you had. Maybe you did, but like you thought they were tucked in and you thought they didn't affect you in any way, or things that happened to you as a child that you didn't think actually affected you in any way, but they did. So recommend that you get the book. I actually recommend that every person gets this book, especially if you're struggling with like knowing yourself and figuring out who you are and what your purpose is in the world. It will not tell you what your purpose is, but it will guide you in the right direction of actually knowing that we're all just really trying to figure it out. Another thing that I want to highlight is that in all the books I've read this year, they all spoke highly of failing. That failure is actually the one way that you will know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. It is only through trying things that you know whether they work or not. Like, it is only through going through that and failing and learning that you know what works or not. So I highly recommend that you get this book. It, there is you. I mean, you can find it on Take a Lot, and other bookstores, I assume. I don't remember how much it was, but I will write that on the description for all the books. And maybe I'll even put links on where you can get them if I'm not lazy. And then the other book I read was Make Your Bed. Now, child, let me tell you about this book. So this book was written by a Navy Admiral William H. McRaven, who was part of the Navy SEALs. And basically, he just talks about his journey in the Navy SEALs and all the lessons that he learned while he was there that actually can be applied to our normal lives. So this book is just about being a better you and taking in habits that are going to be a foundation for your life in a way. So he gives us like 10 habits that you need to do, or that he recommends that you do. So the number one was to start your day with a task completed. And I was like making your bed. I didn't make my bed this morning, but that's because we're having a different day completely. But there is a task that I completed. I exercised. It's something that I told myself last night I'm going to be doing, and I did it. And that kind of just sets you up for progress in your day. Another thing that he mentioned was that you cannot go at life by yourself. Like, you need other people to hold your hand, and you can't do everything by yourself. I think that's standard. I think that's something that we all know, but it's something that we all have to be reminded of. And that failure can make you stronger. So there's a thing that happened, like, so if you were racing and you, like, one of the drills that they do, and you lose, so like they were buddying and you guys lose, then you had to do like extra training. So the extra training was kind of like punishment for losing, but because of that, they were actually a lot more stronger, and they ended up winning most of the competitions or most of the drills because now they're actually stronger and had more endurance. Though failure meant that they had to go back to the drawing board, which is what I think other people miss. Like, when you fail, it doesn't mean give up, but it means go back to the drawing board, exercise more, like get more skilled up or more clued up on things, and try again. And then you will see that by actually putting in the extra work, you'll be ahead of the pack. Maybe in the very same thing that you failed in. That's a word for someone. And then you must dare greatly. I think that stuck up for me. It's like, yes, you might fail. chances are you will. But dare greatly, because then what if you don't? I don't think I need to say more on that. I actually don't think I need to say more on things. 'Cause I feel like we all know what we should be doing and we just don't do it. Which is actually the preface of Woman Involved, that there is an Eve in all of us. Eve knew exactly what was right to do, but she didn't do it, but she was persuaded by the serpent, and it kind of changed her mind, which is something that's like we need to be careful of. Our thoughts are very important. Everything flows from our thoughts. And if you can control your thoughts and set your mind on positive things, you can win the battle that is within. It's not just about external factors, but it's most importantly about what's in your mind. I digress. Let's get back to make your bed. I'm just going to mention the last two. Stand up to the bullies. You need to stand up to things that let you down. Stand up to things that put you down. Stand up to your own thoughts, right? The last one, I've even lost count, but something else that he mentioned in the book that I really loved was to give people hope. So he spoke about a story where they were like stuck in the mud. I was trying to imagine that, and I really cannot. Like Navy SEAL training must be grilling, but they were stuck in the mud, and one of the admirals said to them, "Hey, if you want to get out of there, like I got coffee in my whatever shelter thing. I have coffee. It's warm. You can get out of that and just come through." Trying to get them to fail and quit, right? And as one of them got out, someone else started singing, and this chant kind of got everyone else involved, and they all just started feeling like stronger. And the one guy who had left actually went back and just saying that you need to give people hope. If you're in a position to do so, don't hold on, like, don't hold back. You can. And it's just like a fun thing to do, right? Like, just knowing that we all play a role and we can all support each other. So yeah, and I think the last one is to never ever ever give up. Like never give up. No matter how tough things get, never give up. Unless you have to. Like if it's straining your mental health, I don't know. But never give up. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you liked this video. Comment down below which books you're reading, which books you recommend. And yeah, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I've been on 200 and something subscribers. Are you not embarrassed? Are you not ashamed? I'm not, but you should be, because you're watching this content and you're not subscribing. Okay, thank you. Bye.